Hey, everybody. I think I'm unmuted. I think you can probably hear me. And I think we're all getting pretty used to doing these Zoom GoToWebinar conferences. It's like the only way that we communicate now. It's so strange. Anyways, I had a week off. I had a great time. I spent a lot of time with my son, who was in his final year at Washington University in St. Louis. And he just got a job yesterday. Yesterday he got a job for when he graduates. He's going to be at UCSF, their cellular geometry department. He's a physicist and he's only 21, but he's getting a degree in physics and math. And he's got a job. I'm so excited. He's got his first real job. He's taking a year off before he goes to graduate school, and he's going to work at UCSF in Wallace Marshall's very famous cellular geometry program. And they measure organelle cell size, organelle cell growth rates, all kinds of really cool stuff. So very proud dad. I'm so excited that he has a job because I don't have to pay for anything anymore. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of money when these kids go to college. Everything was a lot of money. Now he's going to be on his own. It's pretty exciting. I'm just kidding. I don't mind paying for his stuff, but it's super great that he knows in his last year where he's going to be and all that. So, anyways, that's kind of been my latest. Now we're going to get down here. For those of you that don't know me, this is me. I'm Dan Kalish. If you're new to this whole thing, I started the Kalish Institute, obviously not too creative with the naming structure here, but it's sort of a easy to say thing. I'm on the faculty for the Institute for Functional Medicine's practice implementation program. In fact, Christy Hughes and I basically created that program together over the last few years. I've done some research with Mayo Clinic. And right now, a lot of what we talk about in these classes is based on the work I'm doing with Dr. Richard Lord, kind of reintroducing everyone back to Richard and the work that he's done to shape our industry. And yeah, and I'm still in practice. I'm still working with patients. If you guys really get into this detox thing, we have the Kalish Method 101 class, which has a deep dive on detoxification and also all the other aspects of what I teach in the mentorship. So it's an online class, obviously, and you can kind of get into the nitty gritty and learn more about not only detox, but GI brain connection, organic acids, neurotransmitters, thyroid, all that good stuff. Okay. So sort of a broad introduction to what I teach in the mentorship course. And then we're starting a new mentorship class come September. Those of you that have been on the fence for a while can sign up and join us before the year is out. And let us take a look at what we're going to talk about today. So I got a bunch of labs. I'm going to review labs. And this is going to be just like the regular classes that I teach when you're in the mentorship. And I think a couple of sort of prefaces, because we're talking about phase 1 and phase 2. And this is a really important distinction. If those of you that are not aware of this, I'll just explain based on my teacher's experience. So my original teacher, Dr. Michael Leibowitz, my second teacher, Dr. Bill Timmons, both of them became quite ill themselves from aggressively pursuing detoxification programs too early in the healing process. So both of them, interestingly, had severe mercury toxicity, and both of them were made severely ill, mistakenly, obviously, by natural health practitioners who were well-meaning, but pushed their detox pathways before they were ready to be pushed. And so, growing up in functional medicine, I had these two teachers, and it was just really clear this is not something you do because they had both had their lives ruined by aggressive detox too early in the process. So when I set up my own sort of Kalish method thing, even though we could all agree that detox is the most important issue of our time, right? Is to get our patients clear of chemicals and environmental toxins and heavy metals. It comes last in the sequence, not because it's the least important. Like when you read a typical textbook, like chapter 12, it's always a chapter that doesn't matter that much, right? It's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw this in at the end. But with detox being the last of the 3 body systems that I recommend be treated, it's because it's the most important, it's because it's the most risky, and it's because you wanna have excellent GI function first, so the person can clear toxins through the gut, gallbladder, dumping bile into all that kind of stuff, right? And you want to have them on a pretty good track with brain function, adrenal function, thyroid function, mitochondrial function. Make sure their ATP levels are really good before you initiate detox. So with really great mitochondrial function, which is up here in neuroendocrine, and really great gut function, detoxification is smooth and you will not make people sick. And people will appreciate that, okay? So we're also going to talk a little bit about, how I divide these things up again. This is the third body system. You can see up here, I'll show you some other diagrams so it's a little more clear. This one here is helpful for a lot of people. So 3 body systems: neuroendocrine, consisting of adrenals, brain, mitochondrial energy, and sex hormones. GI is GI, and then detox is what we're talking about here. Detoxification, oxidation, and methylation. In my mind, these are all lumped together. They're kind of all so heavily interactive, right? If you're full of toxins, you're going to have oxidative stress. If you can't methylate, you're going to be full of toxins. That's kind of just how the body works. And if this system is not working well, then you're going to have really serious ramifications and damage that occurs to the brain, to the neurotransmitters. People get depressed and anxious. And you're going to have really severe problems that happen because of all that oxidative stress damaging the mitochondria, which makes people tired and not that great at life, right? So that's kind of some of the bigger picture stuff. So we never detox just right off the bat. We want to do this in a context. And why is this so important? Because everybody that we work with, everybody in the United States has got, I don't know, the last research I saw on this was like anywhere from 122 to over 700 chemicals and heavy metals just mushing around, circulating throughout the body. Some are water soluble and we flush out, some are fat soluble that we're going to talk about tonight, you don't flush out. There's 82,000 chemicals we've dumped into the environment, and a couple hundred of them are in you. A couple hundred are not in me because I've done, I'm 56. I started doing pretty heavy duty detoxing when I was 18. So yeah, I'm not chemical free. That would be arrogant to say that, but I'm low chemical. Um, in fact, the last time I was tested, this doctor looked at me, he's like, all your tests look so good. Like, what's going on? I was like, well, I don't know. I've spent the last 5 years detoxing every day. What do you think it kind of worked, right? So it's something that you really got to keep at. And the body burden that we're talking about is from this total accumulation of chemicals from the air, from the water. We're just all saturated with them, right? So we're kind of assuming you guys knew all that, and we're going to cut to the chase here and just look at the clinical application part. Phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 run by B vitamins. And let's not skip over B vitamins because we could just stop there at B vitamins and just do this whole 3-week talk on B vitamins. Okay, so B vitamins, well, Dr. Lord asked me this the other day. He's like, this is his quiz question for me when we were doing this recording session. He's like, what's the single most important thing in the human body? Like the single most important thing, just name it. And it's like, it was a trick question. I didn't know what to do. And he's like, B1, thiamine. If your B1 levels are gone, you're going to be dead before you hit the ground, right? If your B1 levels are gone, you can't make ATP. You wouldn't even be able to take a step towards the door before you fell. Your leg would just go along, right? So B vitamins are really important for ATP production, really important for detoxification. They're not like a peripheral thing. And in fact, I don't know, for 20, 30% of my patients, it's a high dose B vitamin program that really turns them around. So we'll look at that in more detail in a moment. Okay, and then you also have the antioxidants, the C's and E's of the world. And then under phase 2, we have glycine, taurine, glutamine, cysteine, N-acetylcysteine, right? These are all the sulfur-containing amino acids that run phase 2. And so what made Dr. Timmons so sick, what made Dr. Leibowitz so sick, is that the practitioners treating them back in the 70s cranked up phase 1 aggressively, and phase 2 wasn't working well. And these toxins, fat-soluble toxins that are partially degraded, partially broken down in phase 1, if they are not completely broken down in phase 2 and eliminated, can cause more damage in this intermediary phase than they did when they were just stored in this, pre-detox phase, in this, when they weren't sort of activated in a sense. I got a diagram of that right here. So here we have an environmental toxin, again, fat soluble. Water soluble toxins, who cares? You says get people hydrated. They're going to drink, pee them out, right? We're not worried about water soluble toxins. Eliminate the source of the toxin and then have them drink plenty of water for a few weeks. What we're worried about is lipid soluble or fat soluble toxins that are in the fat tissue. In phase 1, again, it has these fancy term cytochrome P450 enzymes, but basically we're talking about B vitamins, glutathione, and antioxidants. These fat soluble toxins are then broken down into this intermediary phase, these intermediary metabolites, reactive oxygen intermediates, and they can cause secondary tissue damage. They can make things worse. Right? So if you run phase 1 and phase 2 is kaput, then you're going to get this recycling and everything actually gets worse. That's what happened to Timmons. That's what happened to Leibowitz. So if you don't prepare the person and you run phase 1 aggressively, you're going to have a problem. Have you ever heard of somebody taking folate and crashing? Yes, you have. Have you ever heard of someone taking B12 and getting worse? Yeah, you have, right? This is why if their phase 2 is not adequately running, then these intermediaries, they call it pathological detoxification, right? These intermediaries make the situation worse. So what should happen is you run phase 1, cytochrome P450 enzyme system does its thing. You get this intermediary, no big deal, because you have these conjugation pathways in phase 2. They have these fancy names: sulfation, glucuronidation, acetylation, amino acid conjugation, methylation, et cetera, right? But basically, these sulfur-containing amino acids then run phase 2, and then boom, you got something that's water soluble that can come out in the bile and the stool or through the blood and the kidneys and the urine. It's excreted. Tom Salt, no, it wasn't Tom Salt. Oh, maybe it was Tom Salt. I think one of the IFM teachers said it this way. He said that, the phase 1 takes a toxin and kind of puts a handle on it, and then phase 2 grabs that handle and tosses it out. That was a great little analogy he used a few years ago. It just kind of stuck in my head. So it's, you don't want to just get the handle on, you want to toss it out. And so you have to have both phases working. And where people get the sickest the most often is if you accelerate phase 1 and phase 2 is not working. So again, that could be folate, B12, riboflavin, even a heavy-duty antioxidant could make the person sicker if their phase 2 isn't working. So how do we get around this problem? We test, and we always treat phase 2 either first or along with phase 1. Yeah. Now, I should mention this one other thing, just because you may not think about this. Timmons taught me this years ago. Even if, let's say that the phase 2 test looks perfect, and you're like, wow, this person has the best phase 2 I've ever seen, but their phase 1 is all messed up. If you activate phase 1 and get it working harder, you better give them a little bit of phase 2 support, because this system's going to get cranked up. So no matter what, you always got to anticipate the next thing that's going to go wrong, right? So if phase 2 tests fine, don't think that you can get away with just running phase 1. Still give them a little token phase 2 support, because you're going to be forcing phase 2 to do a lot more work, and you want to anticipate that a little bit ahead of time. So again, let's look at what are these nutrients that we're talking about, and then we're going to look at some testing, and we'll see where they appear on the tests. So niacin, riboflavin, right? Folate, B12, glutathione, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, copper, zinc, selenium, glycine, taurine, glutamine, N-acetylcysteine, cysteine, methionine. That's about it. Sulfur amino acids, B vitamins, and the classic antioxidants. So we're just going to do a little reality check here quickly, and I'll show you an example. I've got so many of these pulled up here. I'm going to show you a series of examples, but here's the first one. So just remember all that stuff we just talked about, and then you're thinking, it would be convenient if I could measure all those things. And then I'm going to say, well, yeah, actually you can pretty easily. It's all on the same panel, in fact. And now you can also, and perhaps should, and if you're interested in it, also measure toxicants. and measure heavy metals and measure all that kind of other stuff. I have nothing against that. However, you don't have to, because if you can see how the detox pathways are not working, then you can fix them. You don't really have to know what the actual toxins are. So this is an ion panel from Genova. And what did we just say for detox? Remember, sulfur amino acids? Look, they even group them together for you there. Sulfur amino acids. If methionine is low, you give methionine. If taurine is low, you give taurine. That's not too complicated. These are the phase 2 things, right? Sulfur amino acids. So you just scan through here and look at the sulfur amino acids and see which ones are low. In this case, it was taurine. And then you can also look at zinc and copper, right? Those are involved. We saw that a minute ago. So zinc is low. You don't want to give zinc for their detox. Here you can see the toxic elements. This person is high in arsenic. Here's the antioxidants that we were just looking at, vitamin E, vitamin A, just saying how these are phase 1 nutrients, so you can measure those on the test. Gamma tocopherol, alpha tocopherol, that's a fancy name for vitamin E. I'm just gonna kind of skip through here. We'll talk a little bit more about mitochondrial function in a minute. And then, oh, and here are the B vitamin markers. These are really important. You gotta memorize these inside and out. You gotta know everything about these markers. So B complex vitamin markers, you can see them here. This one is high. That's one that's related to biotin. So if that's high, it means biotin is low. And then in terms of detox, we're thinking about xanthuronate, that's for B6. And then the methylation markers, methylmalonate, B12, and FIGLU, or formiminoglutamate for folate. Okay, and when this marker is high under FIGLU, that means the person is low in folate. So right off the bat, we know they have a methylation problem. They're not detoxing well. And then, to cap it all off, there is this whole section called toxicants and detoxification. And now we're getting more into the nitty gritty. Here's glucarate, that's phase 1 and phase 2. And these 3 markers here are all for glutathione. Alpha hydroxybutyrate, pyroglutamate, and sulfate, glutathione markers. So just, you can't really memorize this in a half an hour talk, but I just want you to be familiar with it. You can kind of see that, right? And then if we look here at the test again, at the liver detox pathways again, you can see we just reviewed the B vitamin section, right? I'm turning off my camera because the internet is not so great right now. The B vitamin section we just saw. We saw the sulfur amino acid section I pointed out. Remember methionine I showed you. We just saw methylation, right? Methylation, B12 and folate. We just saw that you can measure vitamin A, vitamin E, copper, zinc. We saw all these nutrients, CoQ10. Okay, so these are all measured. And then you support what is needed specifically with the caveat that if you're going to boost up phase 1, make sure you give either a token amount of support for phase 2, or if there's a major phase 2 problem, start with phase 2 first, get that working for a few weeks, and then get into phase 1. That'll avoid most of those crashes that people like my teachers, Dr. Timmons and Dr. Leibowitz had. Now, another thing that happens when we're toxic is that there's oxidative stress that damages mitochondria. And that means that the energy production levels suffer, and now you can't detoxify very well, okay? So that is all kind of like a package deal in a really bad way. And let's look at a few more examples. Oh, and before I forget, yeah, you can do this Kalish Method 101 class. You guys should check that out. And we're starting a new mentorship class coming up soon. So now let's show you some more examples. Sample case studies, that should be it. Oh, no. Let's look at the class from this morning. So this is this morning's class. You want to learn something, you want to see what the students went through this morning in my training program. I'm not making this stuff up. Like, this was this morning, Tuesday, 9 a.m., 8/18/20. This is 148 pages of labs that were sent in. Oh my gosh, we went through an hour and a half. We didn't even get through the whole thing. But let me show you some examples. So what happens is you take the class, you listen to the videos in the mentorship program, then you submit labs, and then we just go over these every week until everyone understands everything. It's a really wonderful experience. This morning's class was particularly good. And not good because I'm like a really handsome and amazing person. It's good because there's really great students submitting really great cases, and then they're interacting with each other. I'm just like the host. I'm like the MC, I mean, I chime in a lot, but it's really great to see people, the kind of the camaraderie that develops and the peer-to-peer teaching, peer-to-peer learning. Okay, so let's see what this case was. This is from Aaron. And what's the main complaint? Wants to stay as healthy as possible and manage thyroid. Tried Synthroid, but didn't do well. So let's look and see. We're going to try to focus on the detox part, right? So remember we said B vitamins, this is phase 1 stuff. And right off the bat, you've got one marker here and one marker here that are high and another one down here. So this is, when this goes high, it means you need B12. When this goes high, it means you need B6. And when this goes high, it means you need B complex. So remember, without B vitamins, your next breath would be your last. These are not just like, oh, some people need B vitamins kind of thing. This is like mission critical for energy production and mission critical for detoxification. And most of us have heard of methylation, that term, which revolves around B vitamins. So I just want to show you how these things interact. And one of the major jobs of B vitamins, in addition to running detox pathways, is to also help with metabolizing amino acids. So we're taking a really high level view of methylation here. And methylation is an essential part of detoxification, right? We talked about methionine already. See, methionine sitting right here, very important for methylation. And then we have your B12, which we're looking at now, right, on the lab, very important for methylation. And then we have folate, THF, everywhere you see THF, tetrahydrofolate, super important for methylation or detoxification, right, part of detoxification. And then to methylate, you need these amino acids, serine, glycine, histidine, tryptophan, and glutamate. Those 5 amino acids contribute to this single carbon pool, which then spins around and ends up being the centerpiece of methylation. So you need both amino acids and B vitamins to make this whole thing work. And this is one of the core problems that a lot of people that we work with have when they can't methylate. All right. So B vitamins, super important, right? And what the other thing with B vitamins is everybody underdoses B vitamins and they just don't work if you underdose them. So you have to figure out therapeutic dosages. You don't want to make people sick, but just, 50 milligrams of B6 is not going to help anybody. It's just not enough. Now, let's look at the detox markers here too. Well, this is a pleasant surprise. This person has all normal detox markers. Methylhyperate, a marker for xylene, normal. Orotate, a marker for ammonia toxicity, normal. Glucarate, a phase 1, phase 2 marker, normal. And then pyroglutamate and sulfate, both normal. Hydroxybutirate's low, but it's hard to detect, so that one you kind of ignore. When it's low like that, doesn't, it's not really sure what it means. But anyway, so this person's actually in good shape for detoxification. Or are they? So this is a trick one. I didn't even plan this. This was the first lab that was submitted this morning. But, on the surface, you would think, oh, their detox section looks really great. I'm just going to relax and think that they don't have a problem with detox. And then, you're like, no, that Kalish guy, he seems a little crazy, but I don't know. He's working with Richard Lord. I think he knows what he's talking about. Richard Lord invented this test. Richard Lord spent 40 years looking at every one of these that was ever done. Richard Lord was the one that set up these machines. Richard talks to Dan every week. Maybe Dan knows something that I don't know. And then you would say, wait a minute, benzoate is high. If benzoate is this high, and it's almost, well, it's more than 2 times the reference range. Benzoate is this high, and hyperate is not commensurately high. That's a glycine deficit. So this person has a major detox problem specifically with glycine. Benzoate high, hyperate not commensurately high, not as high. That's a glycine clearance problem. You clear benzoate into hipparate, you move it into hipparate in your liver. And if you can't do that, benzoate builds up, hipparate doesn't, and that's a glycine problem. And now you're saying, well, glycine, what does glycine have to do with any of this? So we go back to our little image here, and we realize, oh, wait a minute. The first one they list under phase 2 is glycine. So this person has a phase 2 problem with glycine because their liver is not breaking down benzoate into hipparate. That's kind of a trick one. If you were in my class, you would have gotten that. Okay, so anyways, let's go on to the next one. I'm really not making this stuff up. This is just what showed up in class this morning. So here, there's another patient from Aaron. And this patient's got anxiety, hot flashes, not sleeping. So let's look at the detox pathways. Go right to that B vitamin section first. Okay, 1 is high, so it needs B complex. Alpha keto, beta methylvalerate is high, so B complex. Methylation looks pretty good. And we see the rest of these. Hipparate is high, 2-methyl hipparate. 2-methyl hipparate is high. That's a xylene marker. So this person is toxic with xylene. The rest of these markers look okay. Benzoate is undetected. Hipparate's a little high. All right, now you should write this down because you're never going to remember this. I swear you won't remember this. So write this down. If benzoate is high, the last one we saw, and hipparate is not as high, then that's a glycine problem and they need phase 2 liver detox. If benzoate is normal or low and hipparate is high, that is not a problem. That just means they have a lot of polyphenols. It means they're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, okay? So you don't have to do anything about that. So it's just depending on the inverse or, depending on that ratio, it can mean either they need a major liver detox or they're doing fine. So let's see, here's another case Carolyn sent in this morning. Migraines, not a good thing. And then Carolyn's asking, I'm unsure of the issues with her GI tract. It says infection, but I don't see one. Where to start? Want to help her adrenals with migraines, but GI and adrenals. It's confusing. You got all these labs, but you don't know. Like it's hard to know exactly where to start. This person had a normal adrenal hormone production, which is great. So migraines weren't coming from that. But with the GI testing, dysbiosis and infection markers were high, so there's some GI work to do there. Remember, you want to do that first before you do some aggressive detox. So this is a GI case first, and then you can get to the detox as the next step. And then let's look at the detox markers here. Sorry, it's a lot of labs here. There we go. So remember B vitamins first. Oh, well, that's not too hard, is it? There's 3 B vitamin markers that are elevated. So this person needs phase 1 support with B vitamins. And then we can look at the detox markers, and they all look fine. Except, and look, now you know, we just saw this, now you know. Detox markers suspiciously fine. Benzoate, however, is ridiculously high. Hipparate is not as high. This is a glycine problem. We got like 2 in a row. So this person needs glycine to run phase 2. You could give them all the other phase 2 nutrients also. You don't have to just give them glycine alone. And by the way, to answer Jazz's question, how to increase serine levels if chronically low, you use glycine to increase serine while we're on this subject here. Let's see. Well, that's okay. I'll skip that. I was going to show you something else. But yeah, let me show you this one other one here. Do we have time? Yeah, we're about half an hour into this. I'm trying to keep these really short. So let's look here. Oh, no, I know what the one I want to show you was. Hang on a second. Let me pull it up. So phase 1, phase 2, which one you're going to treat? We'll look at a little more complicated lab here. Oh, also in the class also, just so you know what happens, Emily's saying, hey, can you make suggestions in relation to B vitamins causing nausea? Absolutely, we can talk about that. With super high lactate, what are the exact protocols you use? A couple 300 milligrams of B1, 400 milligrams of B3. Who would have known that? Like, I don't know, you're just supposed to know that. So as we answer questions in class, people submit the adrenal labs a lot because I work a lot with the adrenals, so we kind of figure that out as Jeff sent in a patient that has migraines. But I want to get to the end of this row of labs because there was a good one here that we did. We do a lot of GI testing too. We're kind of not talking about that today. But remember, you want to get the gut working before you do a lot of advanced detox. And here we go. So now we're thinking, okay, we're going to want to work on this person's detox or just analyze, do they need detoxification support? When you're starting to get the hang of this a little bit, hopefully you're thinking, okay, well, let's think about what are the amino acids? Well, they group them together on the ion panel under sulfur amino acids. And I'm flipping to the wrong page here, sorry. It's gotta be in here somewhere. I think I went too far, sorry. Let's go back this way. There we go. Sulfur amino acids. They even tell you glutathione related, in case you didn't know that. That's Dr. Lord's sense of humor. It's like, you know, you really should know that. But anyways, methionine, if it was low, you would give it. Homocysteine, cysteine, that's a whole nother question here. Taurine, if that was low, you would give it. So you would give the sulfur amino acids to help with phase 2. And similarly, you're going to see they also measure glycine, serine, etc. You basically replace whichever amino acids are low. If you can't figure it out, just give a combination formula that has them all. Okay, so you can get to the nitty-gritty of individual amino acids, and if it's too much for you to do that, just get some combination phase 2 detox product. All the supplement companies that we work with have really good phase 2 detox products, and somebody spent a year sitting down and planning that stuff out. You know, and I go to these board meetings and lab company meetings and supplement company meetings all the time, and believe me, there is a room of like 6 people sitting around going, we need a phase 2 detox product. And then somebody went off and researched it for like, 6 months and came back and said, here's what I think we should do. And then, so these things are really well thought through. And I know most of the formulators, these are like really smart science people. So if you're working with pure encapsulations or orthomolecular or designs for health, you can just kind of trust that they're doing the right thing here. And then, okay, homocysteine is high. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? That's not really what we're talking about today, though, so we have to skip that, sorry. It's worth mentioning if you're going to get into detoxification, you should also know that selenium is an odd one. It's a mineral, but it's a very powerful detoxifier, especially protective of the brain against mercury and other heavy metals. So selenium, although it's a mineral like magnesium or copper, very important in detoxification, especially if you're working with glutathione and things like that. So selenium has a special importance. So now we're thinking about phase 1, CoQ10, vitamin E here, vitamin A, right? All normal in this patient. If these were low, then we would want to support with them. You can see the oxidative stress markers are a little low as well. And then let's come back around here. And I'll show you what a typical program would look like in 1 second. If you see 3 or 4 of these in a row, hopefully it'll start to sink in a little bit. So we're skipping through the rest of these markers. Here we go. Wow, that doesn't look good, does it? But we're not talking about that right now. Except to mention that if your mitochondria are not working well, none of this is going to work. So B vitamins, remember, we're emphasizing them tonight. B complex, don't hold back and give 50 milligrams. Give 100 or more of all the different Bs. Don't be wimpy about it, because you need more to move the needle here than a light dose. Methylation markers in this case are normal, so we're not worried about that. And then we can look at, oh, here we go. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? So this particular one, alpha hydroxybutyrate is high. When this one's high, it means they don't have enough glutathione. Okay, so we're going to want to work on glutathione with this person. The B vitamins, And then let's just scoot down and see benzoate and hippurate are relatively normal. So now if we go back to where we started off here, let's see where to go. Let me make this better for you guys so you can see it more clearly. Go back to the diagram where we started, phase 1 and phase 2. Now this should start to make some more sense. Phase 1, B vitamins. Don't pass that over. Give hefty amounts if needed. That'll get phase 1 working. Glutathione, we saw some markers for that. And then the antioxidants, you can measure all of these easily on the labs, vitamin E, CoQ10, vitamin A, all that. And then the phase 2, remember sulfur amino acids, glycine, taurine. Glutamine is one too. It's kind of weird. You wouldn't think of glutamine as being a gut one, but it's really important for your liver. Cysteine, more famously, usually people use N-acetylcysteine. These are the sulfur amino acids that run phase 2. So if you just learn how to interpret the labs and then learn how to get an aggressive side with supplements, then you can knock out all these liver detox problems. And you can help a lot of people with a lot of different things. Sleep disorders, skin problems, weight gain. You can't lose weight if you really got a big problem with your detox pathways, right? You're not going to burn body fat very well. So just for weight loss programs alone, it's probably worth learning how to do this stuff. Okay, and we'll summarize one more time so you can see how this all works. We looked at B vitamins that would help with phase 1. We looked at the antioxidants that help with these toxic intermediaries, right? CoQ10, vitamin A, vitamin E. We measure all these. I mentioned selenium is a special one. You get all that working, but not too aggressively, because you have to make sure phase 2 is engaged and working. If you crank up phase 1 and all this is dumped on phase 2 and phase 2 isn't working well, then you're going to go through this little bad arrow system here they have. Let me show you. If you crank up phase 1 and phase 2 is shut down, okay, then you're going to have these reactive oxygen intermediaries causing secondary tissue damage and even more free radicals and messing things up even more. You don't want to do that. So to avoid that, you always start with phase 2, even if it looks like phase 2 is okay, give a little bit of phase 2 support along with phase 1, and you'll have smooth detox programs. And you can get super specific. Like we just said, that one patient really needed glycine. Remember that earlier patient really needed taurine. It's going to make a big difference. If you give the person that needs taurine glycine, is it going to help? I don't know. It would be like if a kid was having their birthday party and you gave them a present that they didn't really like. You know, they'd be like, oh, well, thanks for giving me, that rice cooker. I really was looking forward to a video game because I'm 13 years old or something, right? I mean, like, is the body going to reject it? I'm not going to reject it, but it's like, it's going to fall flat. If their taurine levels are low and you give taurine, it's like, yahoo! It's like a 13-year-old getting like the best video game. It's like, yeah, that's just what we needed right now. Thank you. And then dose upwards, right? So how much? 3 grams a day or more. How much glycine? 3 grams a day or more. How much N-acetylcysteine? 3 grams a day or more. What is more? 6 grams? Do you do 9 grams? No, not that often, but 3 grams, 4 grams, 6 grams, somewhere in that range. Okay, to really get these things to work. B vitamins, 50 milligrams? Nah, it's not gonna really do anything. 100? Nah, you're talking, yeah, 200? Yeah, probably. 100 milligrams of B6? That's better than 50. 200 might be a little much, but sometimes you're going to need to do that. How much niacin? 50, 100 milligrams at least. If you really want to get these pathways working, you have to dose people therapeutically. A low dose of a product is just not really going to make a difference. It's the same thing with CoQ10. 100 milligrams of CoQ10 never helped anybody. 200 at least, 400 if they can afford it. So get these into the therapeutic range, and you'll really see movement in people relatively quickly. All right, so I'm going to end now in the sake of time here because we're hitting our limit. But hopefully you learned something. If you're really interested and you think this is cool stuff, take the Kalish Method 101 class. We're selling it for ridiculously cheap right now. It's an online course. It kind of lays out all the things I do in the mentorship in little bits, kind of like best of bits. And we'll be sending out an email. If you can also just log right in bit.ly/Kalish method 101. But we'll send out emails with links if it's too hard for you to remember that little URL there. Okay. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to drink my lemon water, and then I'll answer questions. Okay, so a couple of questions for a few minutes. We'll wrap it up. Let me see. Do we need to have concern if the sulfate level is high in a patient with sulfur-containing supplements? So sulfate comes back high and the person's taking salt. That's what you would expect if you're giving them sulfur supplements. So I don't think that's necessarily bad. It just means it's working. But at some point, you'd want to retest them when they've been off of the sulfur supplements for a couple of weeks. So if the markers are high or low, is there a problem with antioxidant markers and B vitamins? Absolutely. High levels of like a antioxidant marker means that there's not enough antioxidants present. A low level of an antioxidant marker can mean something even worse. I will leave that to your imagination. Let's see. How to increase serine levels. I talked about that for jazz. You give glycine. How much? 3 grams, 6 grams a day. Oh, if taurine is high, what does that mean? Well, it could mean they're eating too much protein or taking too much taurine, but that's pretty unusual. You know, it's easy enough to figure out. When an amino acid is high in the blood, in a blood test, it generally means that it's circulating in the bloodstream and not being utilized. It's not getting into the cells. Okay, and this is a hard question, but what is the nutrient or the group of nutrients that metabolizes or breaks down amino acids? B vitamins. So high taurine is a lack of B vitamins. It's usually vitamin B6, but not always. I prefer the ion panel over the NutriVal for a bunch of reasons. They both are run by Genova, and I think the ion panels are, you can get a lot more data and information out of them, so I'm much more of an ion panel fan. Molybdenum has a huge role to play in detox. Absolutely, that is true. If you're a patient, you can work with me over the phone. Just go to, this is for Floyd, go to Kalish. Let me show you my patient website. Oh, I have a little promo on that for Floyd here. This is part of a different talk, but you can just, here's the Kalish Institute thing. You can schedule a call with our health coach, Jennifer. Just go to kalishwellness.com and she'll get you started if you want to be a patient on the phone, okay? I have patients all over the world. That's not a problem, Floyd. To support phase 2, can you give liposomal glutathione? Yeah, you could, but you need to give the individual, that is a good idea, okay? But you should also give the amino acids that are deficient. And if you're just doing the organics, then you don't know, Suresh, so then you do the broad spectrum. Again, look at the catalog of the supplement company you're working with and give the phase 2 product, and it'll have glycine and N-acetylcysteine and a bunch of taurine in it. You know, it'll be like 5 or 6 amino acids. That's what you do if you don't have the specific data of the more advanced testing. Just give a combination product. It basically hits all the detox pathways simultaneously. Great Plains is a great company. I don't do their labs at all, but an old and good friend of mine named Kurt Wohler is one of their doctor educators. So if you like Kurt, especially if you're doing autistic children, he's an expert in that area. Great Plains is a really good company to work with, and you can learn from Kurt Wohler. He's a wonderful teacher and doctor. All right, and let's see here. There was one thing one thought I wanted to end on. I forget what it was now. Let's see. Hang on a second. Oh yeah, okay, just quick review, all right? So we're gonna do it backwards because this is the order of importance. If you're doing, if you have problems with phase 2, you're gonna see it on these markers here. Phase 1, phase 2 there. You're gonna see it here with benzoate being high. That was a glycine marker, remember that? Benzoate high, HIPAA rate not high. We didn't talk about oxidative stress a lot, but you're going to see typically also oxidative stress markers will be up. Okay, and then when you're doing to these actual treatments, to Suresh's point, if you don't know exactly which pathway is blocked, use a combination product. It'll have typically glycine, taurine, maybe some glutamine, N-acetylcysteine, cysteine, or methionine in it. All the companies will have a phase 2 product that contains all these, so you don't have to get specific with the pathway. That is totally acceptable. Just dose up that phase 2 product to therapeutic levels. Similarly, most of the companies, not all, have a phase 1 product, and it'll have B vitamins and antioxidants and stuff like that in it. So you can kind of juggle those two. And you can do most of these programs in a simple way with 2 or 3 products, or you can go into depth and get into like, oh, I'm just going to give glycine kind of approach. Okay. So I'll wrap up on that idea. You can do in all, oh, I was going to design a program. That's what I wanted to do. Sorry, I forgot. And we got to stop. Let's see here. So I just want to show you what a typical program can end up looking like so you get a visual on that. Let's say the person has all the problems, because most of the time they have them all, right? It's not hard to imagine. I've set up thousands of these detox programs. I wouldn't say they're fun, but they really do help people. So let's say you would start always with phase 2 liver support product. If you want to keep it simple, make it a combo product. What's it going to have in it? Glycine, taurine, methionine. Again, there's like groups of scientists sitting around tables making this stuff up for you. So if you use pure encapsulations or designs for health or orthomolecular or metagenics, it'll be a good product. Some super smart person, and I met and know all these people. They're the sweetest, most well-intentioned, super smart group you can imagine. And they're not going to design some crappy phase 2 product for you, but just use a good quality company. The ones that I use, Pure Encapsulations, Designs for Health, Metagenics, Orthomolecular, all their products from those companies are good. And dose them pretty high, maybe give 3 twice a day, something like that, whatever it may be. If you want to go old school, you could just do N-acetylcysteine. Then you would give antioxidants, some combination antioxidant formula. If you're not doing the individual testing, give a combo formula. And again, every company will have it. It's going to have some vitamin E. It's going to have some C. It's going to have some A or beta carotene, right? It's going to have all that stuff in it. If you want to get specific, you can give specific stuff. Give a couple of those typically. If you're really doing detox in the real way, you need the B complex that I mentioned, and then you need some kind of a binding agent. And that could be fiber, apple pectin fiber, psyllium fiber, could be diatomaceous earth, something like that. It's going to bind things up and grab toxins and pull them out. Okay, so phase 2 support, antioxidants, B complex, and some kind of binding agent. If you want to get fancier and you get into these reports, you could do glycine, let's say 500 milligrams, and you give like a ton of it, right? And then N-acetylcysteine, I just did one of these today, 900 milligrams, and you give a ton of it. And then let's say B complex with extra B6. If they have, remember, we said high amino acids, then they need the extra B6. So you give a couple of those. And then you want some antioxidants, but let's say you're doing the advanced testing. They need vitamin E, CoQ10, and vitamin A. So now you're dialing it in really specifically, and you give those. And then a binding agent, right? Something to bind up the toxins as they're getting dumped out. And then the one special case to be on the lookout for is if the person's losing a lot of body fat, if they're on a weight loss program, they're going to be dumping out environmental toxins left and right. You want to make sure you do these kind of programs. Okay, so here's phase 2 we start with, do it backwards. Here's phase 1, right? And then a binding agent, and you're off and running with a customized detox program. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for now. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll talk soon.